The 76ers back in the city where Superman got his start so many years ago and recently won a title in October. And speaking of places where guys got their starts, Tobias Harris, no stranger to Orlando, warming up for the 76ers earlier today. It is the final day, some would say mercifully, of 2020, but the 76ers want to go out in style, taking on the Magic at Amway Center tonight. How you doing? Happy final day of 2020. I'm Brian Seltzer. Great to be spending New Year's Eve with you, and you too, Lauren Rosen. Happy advanced New Year. Happy end of 2020.
Next year, I hope it brings the 20 on a high note tonight.
Three and on. Now the Sixers have an opportunity. Team in the NBA, its first loss of the year, and is it too early after 1 week to start looking at the standings? They could force a tie for first place atop the conference.
Well, too early to look, if I'm being honest, but I would never be mad to be tied for the top of the conference. And obviously, this is a Magic team that's got off to a really hot start. So I'm sure the Sixers would love to sort of knock them off this little run that they've gone on. And I think that they can do it, Seltz.
I think so too. Even though Orlando's been a tough place for the team to play in recent years, Orlando is riding high behind a great performance through these first couple days of the season. They've been a really good fourth quarter team themselves. Markelle Fultz recently rewarded with a contract extension. He's off to a good start. The Magic have an all-star big man we all know in Nick Vucevic. We'll get to them in a moment, but let's go back to Tuesday night, Lauren. What a great win for the Sixers at the Center. A rivalry game against Toronto. And yeah, some of the faces changed, but it was great to see the Sixers band together behind Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons' defense to seal the deal late against the Raps.
The most after that game was Joel saying that he loves and hates playing the Raptors. Obviously, there is a lot of history there. It's a team that the Sixers have struggled against, but it was cool to watch them put their foot down and say, you know what? No, this is our game. We're going to win tonight. And in that second half, they outscored Toronto 52-37. Doc Rivers, of course, more impressed by holding the Raptors to just 37 points in the second half than he necessarily was by the offense. But it was really cool to see them get rolling in a big way after what was a difficult first half. And all the guys agreed afterwards that this was a character-building win, and it is never too early in the season, speaking of things it's never too early for, to start having character wins.
I agree with you, and I know that maybe I'm probably guilty at times of talking about one of the great plays from that game, Embiid's block in the third quarter. I may be guilty at times of getting a little bit too holistic with my analysis, but I think that, you start to see things like this game on Tuesday, and then you think back to the season opener 8 days ago against the Wizards when the Sixers had a really strong fourth quarter, outscoring Washington 40-24 to win that game. I really believe that these types of experiences for a team that's got new faces on the roster, especially in the starting lineup, and of course a brand new coaching staff, these are valid, these are legitimate potential building blocks for teams that's trying to find cohesion and an identity early on in the season.
Defense, I think it all sort of comes together, right? And when you look at the three stars, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, all having really strong defensive outings. Here we see them get cranking on the offense, obviously, but for all of them to have steals and blocks in a game, especially Tobias, who's not quite as known for his defense the way that Ben and Joel are, I think that's a really good sign. They talk about wanting to set the tone on defense, and they really did in this one. And this perhaps one of the biggest plays of the night, if not the play of the night. Joel Embiid kicking it out to a shooter as he loves to do, developing that early season chemistry with Seth Curry. And it was great to see that one go down. Just such a satisfying shot to watch.
It was a great game for Seth Curry. We saw Danny Green hit a big shot to get the Sixers back within two. And I think when we look at the first week of the season and we try to figure out what's for real, what might have emerged as a potential trend with staying power, obviously how the Sixers are using Embiid and how he's been performing. I think, yes, the stats on the surface eye-popping, among the best in the league so far through the first week. But it's also what he's doing, Lauren, as you alluded to, on scoring possessions for the Sixers when he's the one who's not doing the scoring. He's still involved when he's out there, as we maybe take a look at some of Embiid's numbers from not only the last game, but how he's shaped up so far in this young season.
Double-double in every outing. 29 points, 16 rebounds the other night, plus 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks that we just talked about. And if he can put together a season like this, Celts, talk about things. Okay, we're all going to do it now tonight. Say things a little too early. But can we start talking about the MVP race? Because he's playing like one of the most, if not the most, dominant players in the league on both ends of the court. It's been so cool to see him come out as strong as he has. And it seems like based on his motivation, shout out to the article that you wrote and posted today on Sixers.com. This is a motivated man with a slightly different mindset. And I really think he can carry it through. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think, hey, listen, if you were in the mood for Joel Embiid content, today was the day. Great article by Ramona Shelburne of ESPN as well. But just looking at him out there, his ability to protect the rim, obviously, get himself planted deep down there on the post. Good things happen. And again, that play was just such a great play from Joe. And I think, Lauren, it's like, I feel like we've heard Joel talk a lot so far about harkening back to the good old days of like a season or two ago. He's referenced a couple times now, going back to 2 or 3 years ago when the Sixers offensively, they were able to swing the ball more when they had J.J. Redick on the roster. And not just what the Sixers were doing on offense back in 2017-18 and 18-19, but defensively when the emphasis for the Sixers in those seasons were essentially let's pack the paint and shut off the lane first, and then we'll try to take care best we can of the opposition shooting. Yeah, you got to pick your poison, but I feel like he's a lot more comfortable with how the Sixers are running things this year, at least if you want to read into what he's been saying.
Sure, and I think that goes for both ends of the floor. Obviously, we saw that dominant defensive play, another satisfying play from Tuesday's game. But then here's this play with Seth again, making sure that he's able to kick out to guys that he trusts that can make the shots fall. That's something that I know is a relief for Joel because he wants to get his teammates involved. He always says he wants to get them involved. He had a great quote the other night talking about how it's not one guy, it's not two guys, it's not 3 or 4 guys, it's 1 through 15. And Joel wants to engage players 1 through 15 and allow them to be their best while he's being their best. So when you look at it through that lens, you can't really lose. And it looks like Joel is off to a start of maybe his best season yet.
We can only hope. 76ers, meanwhile, are the best second-half defensive team in the NBA through the first week of the season. Joel Embiid has a lot to do with that. Let's hear Joel breaking down how the Sixers have been scheming things up on defense so far this season.
Our philosophy is, we're more worried about, protecting the paint first, making sure we don't give up easy buckets, and then just scramble and try to limit those opportunities from 3 as much as we can. But, going into, every game, we obviously want to be the best defensive team in the league. So we, like we played in that 4th quarter, we got to play like that all game.
Well put by Joel Embiid. He's been on fire in the 3 games he's played over the last 3 games, whether Embiid's been in there or not. Tobias Harris has been tremendous. Out of line, Lauren, to say that the last game against Toronto was Tobias's best as a 76er. I was trying to put some thought into it. I probably could have put more thought into it like I could with anything else. But I really feel like that was all-around game when you're looking at offense and defense. Might have been one of his most complete performances in a significant game against a great opponent as a Sixer.
The great opponent, the offense, and the defense. There's an argument to be made that might have been his best game as a Sixer. And you are, after all, only as good as your last performance. So if that's his last performance, it's a really good sign for what's to come with Tobias as the season continues. Something you and I have talked about is his defense. We've talked about it a few times on the show already tonight, but it's something he says he's put a lot of effort into, and it was really showing on Tuesday. He got it started on the offense, off the offensive end early. He kept it going throughout, but there were a few really shining defensive plays that I was happy to see Tobias make, because that's an area he keeps saying he has been putting effort into, and then he's been gratified now with some really cool plays on that end.
He had a steal in the fourth quarter that was big. He had that recovery and transition on a fast break that Toronto could have tied the game on, that OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet were involved in. And I think Doc Rivers summed it up really well after the game on Tuesday. He was asked what he liked about Tobias. You can correct me, Lauren, if I'm wrong, but I think he said he was just aggressive Tobias, decisive Tobias, and like we were talking about, really engaged on the defensive end. And these past couple times out, he hasn't wasted any time getting on the board scoring. I mean, take a look at that line over the last 3 games, what Tobias Harris has done. That is fantastic. And if Tobias is giving you that, plus it seems like some renewed engagement on defense, I mean, you can't argue with that.
Rivers has now said a few times that the best Tobias Harris is a Tobias Harris that makes quick decisions, and it looked like he was making them very quickly in this one. A lot of quick catch and shoot action that I think we can expect to see a little bit more out of from Tobias. And then something else that struck me that Doc said after the game was that Tobias was the hot hand. He had it going, but in the fourth quarter, he still was able to connect with and engage Joel Embiid to make sure that Joel kept it going as well. And Doc said that type of decision making, that type of leadership, that when you're the hot hand, you still want to go and find your teammates, is something that Doc really values. It's something that Tobias has always been good with doing. So if he can continue to engage himself and his teammates the way he did the other night, it could be, we just said it about Joel Embiid, but it could be one of Tobias Harris's best seasons yet as well.
I think Tobias can say he was one of the few out there who had a quality last couple months of 2020. He had a good finish to 2020.
For Tobias Harris, if we're being honest, when we look back at our Spotlight series, obviously we did one with Joel Embiid today, which was phenomenal. But there's also one up on Sixers.com about Tobias, whether it was getting engaged, meeting now the vice president-elect, making a difference in the world as Tobias has become known for. He really did it all in the offseason, and now he's back on the court doing a great job as well. So good to see him succeeding. He's a great guy, and you love to see success for a great guy. Speaking of great guys, we also have an interview tonight with the one and only Tom McGinnis. You like that segue? I'm working on segues.
Professional
We talked to Tom
segue.
McGinnis a little bit earlier, and it was a pleasure to talk to him as always. Check it out. Always a pleasure to be joined by Tom McGinnis. And Tom, it's New Year's Eve. Let's start things out on a high note. What did you like most about the team's come-from-behind win on Tuesday against Toronto?
Well, the win, for sure. Lauren, as I mentioned to Brian post-game on the radio, like, we're all so excited to have basketball back. And as you know, we get to, for instance, for myself, get to call the game there. And I know you're in there reporting. So that right there, you just treasure that. But I forgot how hard these games are. My goodness, like how hard fought, every victory is. They're not easy, at least so far haven't been for the Sixers. So that was really, I thought, a great comeback. And the number when Embiid came back in the game, that's when the Sixers took off. So a huge sigh of relief on many levels, obviously, with the star player able to return. And then the Sixers all of a sudden started getting stops and scoring. I thought Tobias had probably his best game of the year. And both Seth and Danny Green hit big shots down the stretch. And again, hard to beat Toronto. I can't believe they're not win. They haven't won yet, but an amazing victory for the Sixers to go to 3-1.
And obviously, looking ahead tonight, unlike Toronto, the Magic are undefeated. So, what to you is the key to cornering this Magic team into their first loss of the season?
Right. So they beat Oklahoma twice, but on the road. They beat Washington and they beat Miami. I'm sorry, they beat Oklahoma City, but they beat Washington twice. So you could argue their schedule's been a little light, but the Sixers played and beat Washington as well. But they have connectivity. They have where they've been around for a while with Steve Clifford, and he keeps them tightly controlled. Vucevic has been an all-star player without doubt. Terrence Ross comes off the bench, and he's been their leading scorer. Now, he's not going to play tonight. I found out through my reporting, Lauren, that he's got a hamstring injury, and they want to be careful with that. He tried it at shoot-around today. But, Fournier is good, and Markelle Fultz is playing with confidence, and he's so fast. He's playing pretty well. So they had a tight rotation, but, they're solid. This is going to be, and I say this every game, but this is going to be a real tough test. And guess what? They've ruled the roost, if you will, against the Sixers over the years down in Orlando.
Right, you are. Same thing with Toronto, though. They've had the better of the Sixers for a while, and they managed to squeak it out. So I'm hoping that the Sixers can do the same tonight. Tom, as always, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you, and Happy New Year. Have a safe night.
You too.
Always great to hear from T-Mac, and that is a noteworthy absence for the Orlando Magic, Lauren, the only unbeaten team left in the NBA at 4-0. No Terrence Ross, but you got to respect what Orlando has done. Are they the surprise story of the NBA thus far? I'd have to say they probably are, right?
I mean, if you're willing to assign plot lines this early, which I guess we've decided so far in the show we are, yeah, they've been
You
quite a
have
surprise.
to. What
They've
else are
been
you going to
really
do?
Terrence Ross as well, leading the team in scoring. Cool to see a veteran do so well. And obviously, he will not be with the team tonight due to a hamstring issue, or he might be on the bench, but he's not going to play tonight because of a hamstring issue. That doesn't mean they don't still have weapons, though. They have an all-star big man in Vooch, who's had some great battles with Joel in the past. And then obviously Markelle Fultz also off to a really good start in Orlando. So hopefully the Sixers can put this whole winning streak thing at bay with the Magic and have them start 4-0. I think that's good enough for them.
Fultz averaging 18.5 points and 6 assists per game. I got to be honest, I'm happy for him. He just got a contract extension. He's a kid who, at least in my personal view, when he was here, tried as best he could. It wasn't working out. Even in the beginning of his time in Orlando, there were some bumps in the road, but it seems like he's finally been able to find himself in a rhythm and get some personal momentum going. I'm happy for him.
And how can you not be? Anytime a good person overcomes adversity, I'm going to root for it. So good for him. I hope he continues on the path that he's on, but not quite that great tonight because I hope the Sixers can do their thing.
And listen, before we get to our Tissot keys to the game, I think that, yes, this is going to be a great test for the 76ers going up against a team that's off to a strong start this year. But in particular, this is going to be the toughest matchup, you would presume, based on what's on paper, for Joel Embiid. We've been talking about how great of a start he's gotten off to. Yes, Aaron Baines is pretty good. He did not play, did Joe, against Andre Drummond the other night. But this is a legit all-star big man who can score in a bunch of ways and test you defensively the same way that Joel can. So I really want to see, just as much as how the Sixers across the board go up against the Magic, how this matchup plays out between Joel and Nick Vucevic.
And plus, like Tom said, the Magic have done really well against the Sixers in recent years. And if the Sixers can sort of get this monkey off their back tonight, obviously this is a team they're going to have to face a few times this season. It would be great to sort of buck that narrative and see them get away from this idea that the Magic are tough to beat, because I think the Sixers are the better team.
Do you want to start with our keys segment? Close out 2020?
I would be happy to. So my key to the game is not going to be that surprising for those of you who have watched. 24 seconds. I'm officially on the clock. I said keep Embiid rolling. He has had such a good start to this season. Like we said the other night, 29 and 16, phenomenal stuff. And hopefully he can continue to do so. Feed Joel, let Joel get those touches that he needs, and then allow Joel to continue kicking out to his teammates the way we saw for the game winner the other night. 24 seconds.
Well done. That was pretty good. First time on the actual clock. We got to send a huge shout out to Ryan Coletti and Trevor Gaffney integrating a live countdown clock. Tissot, I hope that they send Ryan Coletti a nice little, maybe they can give him a nice little timepiece for that. All right, my turn. 24 seconds on the clock. Going to try and be quick. 76ers, I love the fact that you are the best second half defensive team in the NBA so far, but how about a full 48 tonight? I think the Sixers want to see it from themselves as well. Sustain from start to finish, come out, set the tone, control the game all the way through, and send 2020 off into oblivion on a positive note. That's it. That's my key.
With seconds to spare. Phenomenal work.
We can only try. I don't know if it's good to not use the full 24, because maybe you're shortchanging the people out there on the analysis.
We'll feel it out as time goes along. But that was great, Celts. And I love the idea of the Sixers playing on New Year's Eve, heading into 21 on a high note. To all of you that are watching with us, thank you for being part of my 2020. The Sixers and the Sixers fans have been easily the best part of my 2020, and it's not even close. So it's been a pleasure to be with you guys, and hopefully you'll stay with us into 2021. Seltz, any thoughts on New Year's Eve?
My only thought is that apparently in the Seltzer household at 5:30, it's the new midnight because it seems like the party's already started downstairs with the 2.5-year-old toddlers. So I think it's time for me to roll out, or at least turn my mic off and hit mute. But thank you, everyone out there. Hopefully whatever you wanted 2020 to be and it wasn't, that's what you get in 2021.
That's the spirit. Love to hear it.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you guys in 2021 this weekend.